Diana died tragically 22 years ago in 1997 from injuries sustained in a car crash in Paris. 4 years before she died, she signed a last will and testament and modified that will the year before she died. In those documents, she left her estate worth approximately $25 million to her two sons.
Decades after her tragic passing, Princess Diana's legacy continues to captivate the world.
Today marks 25 years since Princess Diana was tragically killed in a car crash in Paris.
But nothing could prepare fans for what was recently uncovered in her private estate. Hidden behind locked doors and sealed archives lay personal letters, mysterious artifacts, and never-before-seen mementos that paint a hauntingly intimate portrait of the people's princess. As investigators peeled back layers of royal secrecy, one discovery in particular left even the closest insiders speechless. But what was so shocking, so deeply personal, that it shook the palace to its core? Let's find out. The Oval Lake Grave. Though many members of Princess Diana's family, including her father John Spencer, are buried at the historic St. Mary the Virgin Church in Great Brington, Diana herself rests far from the family vault, some 80 miles away. Her final resting place was not chosen lightly. Her brother, Charles Spencer, made the heartfelt decision to lay her to rest at their childhood home, Althorp Estate. He was deeply concerned about public safety and the overwhelming attention Diana continued to receive, even in death. But there was another, more personal reason behind his choice. Charles wanted Diana's sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, to be able to visit their mother in peace, without the constant gaze of the public or the press. Speaking with People magazine at the time, he shared, "I think it's very important for them to be there with her. It is, luckily, very tranquil here, and they can come and go as they wish whenever they want. And that's very lovely for me to know." In his 1998 book, Althorp, The Story of an English House, Charles opened up further about the decision. "We all agreed that with its beauty and tranquility, this was the place for Diana to be," he wrote. Princess Diana's grave lies in a serene and secluded part of the estate.
Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, and doing it on Twitter for what he calls neglect of her island resting place. It's on Earl Spencer's property. It's an island in the middle of the lake.
On a small island at the center of the ornamental Oval Lake. For her funeral in 1997, a temporary walkway was constructed to allow mourners to reach the island. But once the funeral was over, the path was removed, making it nearly impossible for anyone to approach the grave uninvited. This was intentional. Oval Lake itself has a history. Designed in the 1800s by Samuel Lepage, the lake was built when English winters were cold enough to allow for ice skating, a favorite pastime of the Spencer family. Charles even mentioned in an Instagram post in 2022, "It was put in because my family had a thing for ice skating." As a tribute to Diana's life, a pathway leading to the lake is now lined with 36 oak trees, each one representing a year of her life. These trees were planted by various members of the royal family, including Queen Elizabeth II, the Queen Mother, King Charles, Princes William and Harry, and Diana's own family members. Although the grave itself is closed to the public, those wishing to honor Diana can still do so at a beautiful memorial on the Althorp grounds. In July 1998, a special monument known as the Temple was unveiled. This elegant Grecian-style structure was originally purchased in the 1880s by John, the 5th Earl Spencer, for just £3. Today, it bears Diana's name and stands as a powerful tribute to her legacy. Inside the temple, 2 stone tablets commemorate the late princess. One features a quote from Diana herself, "Nothing brings me more happiness than trying to help the most vulnerable people in society. It is a goal and an essential part of my life, a kind of destiny. Whoever is in distress can call on me. I will come running wherever they are." The second tablet contains a moving excerpt from the eulogy her brother gave at her funeral in Westminster Abbey. "We give thanks for the life of a woman I am so proud to be able to call my sister, the unique, the complex, the extraordinary and irreplaceable Diana, whose beauty, both internal and external, will never extinguish from our minds." For several years, Charles also opened a museum on the Althorp estate in Diana's honor. Visitors were able to view some of her most iconic belongings, her elegant dresses, sparkling tiaras, and cherished pieces of jewelry. Even more touching were the personal items on display: family photographs, handwritten letters, and home videos that offered a glimpse into her private world. As reported by the Washington Post, Charles pledged to donate a significant portion of the museum's earnings to the Princess Diana Memorial Fund.
It's the first consumer product to carry the official logo of the Diana Princess of Wales Memorial Fund on the lid and sides of a margarine tub.
Although the museum closed in 2014, Diana's legacy continues to live on. Every summer, the public can still visit Althorp Estate and reflect on the life of a woman whose compassion, elegance, and spirit touched hearts all over the world. Diana's ancestral home, where she was laid to rest, has a very rich history. Let's delve into the details behind Althorp. A timeless estate of history, legacy, and tragedy. Nestled in the heart of the English countryside, Althorp is a breathtakingly beautiful and historically rich estate located in West Northamptonshire, spanning roughly 13,000 acres of rolling parklands and manicured gardens. This grand property lies just 6 miles from the town of Northampton and about 75 miles from London. It rests quietly between the picturesque villages of Great Brington and Harleston, offering a peaceful retreat far from the rush of modern life. For over 5 centuries, Althorp has been the cherished home of the noble Spencer family and has been under the care of Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer, since 1992. It also holds deep emotional significance for many around the world as the beloved childhood home of Lady Diana Spencer, later known as Princess Diana. Althorp's roots stretch deep into English history. The estate was first recorded in the Domesday Book of 1086 as Olatorp. By the 1300s, it had evolved into a small village, but it was mysteriously abandoned around 1505. Just a few years later, in 1508, the estate was purchased by John Spencer, who used the wealth his family had gained from sheep farming to establish a lasting legacy. The house that stands today was rebuilt in 1688, replacing an earlier residence once graced by the presence of King Charles I. During the 18th century, Althorp blossomed into a center of culture, art, and learning. The Spencer family amassed an incredible collection of artwork and books. George John, the 2nd Earl Spencer, became known across Europe for assembling one of the largest private libraries of the time, which at its peak held more than 100,000 books. Unfortunately, the weight of financial difficulties in later years led to the heartbreaking sale of many rare treasures, including a large portion of this remarkable library and much of the estate's elegant furnishings. The house itself is a masterpiece of changing styles. Originally built as a red brick Tudor mansion, it was transformed in the late 1700s under architect Henry Holland, who gave it a new look with pale, mathematical tiles and elegant Corinthian pillars. One of its crown jewels is Wootton Hall, the stately entrance, celebrated as one of the finest Georgian interiors in the region. The 115-foot-long picture gallery, still adorned with its original Tudor oak woodwork, houses an exceptional collection of portraits and speaks to the home's deep artistic heritage. Following the tragic passing of Princess Diana in 1997,
the princess, who spent her life in the relentless glare of the public eye, died in a speeding car in Paris, apparently trying to evade pursuing photographers.
she was laid to rest on a serene island in the round oval lake within the estate, marked by a simple and moving Doric-style memorial temple nearby. Today, Althorp quietly opens its gates to the public each summer in July and August, allowing visitors a rare glimpse into centuries of history, elegance, and enduring legacy, even though its exhibition center closed in 2013. Leaving the ancestral home of the Spencers, let's dive into the details of Diana, the princess who captivated the globe. Diana, Princess of Hearts. Diana Frances Spencer, born on July 1, 1961, and fondly remembered as the Princess of Wales, was not just a royal figure. She became a symbol of grace, kindness, and heartfelt compassion. Her story reads like a fairy tale, yet it was filled with both dazzling moments and deep personal struggles. Diana's life touched millions across the world and left an impact that still lingers long after her tragic death on August 31, 1997. Diana was born into the British aristocracy, a world of grandeur and tradition. Her family, the Spencers, were closely connected to the royal household, and she grew up at Park House, located within the royal Sandringham estate. From an early age, Diana was familiar with the customs and atmosphere of the upper class, yet she always showed a special warmth that set her apart. Before the world knew her as a princess, Diana lived a relatively simple life. She worked as a nursery teacher's assistant and had a gentle, shy demeanor. But everything changed in 1981, when she became engaged to Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne and the eldest son of Queen Elizabeth II. Their wedding, held at St. Paul's Cathedral, was a grand affair, watched by millions around the globe. In that moment, Diana became the Princess of Wales, stepping into the royal spotlight with the eyes of the world upon her. As the wife of the future king, Diana was admired not just for her royal status, but for her natural beauty, elegance, and fashion sense. Her every move was followed by the media, and her popularity soared. With the birth of her two sons, William and Harry, she cemented her place in the hearts of the public. The boys were second and third in line to the throne, and Diana devoted herself to their upbringing, striving to give them as normal a childhood as possible, despite the pressures of palace life. However, behind the fairy tale image, Diana's marriage was crumbling. Her relationship with Prince Charles was marred by deep emotional distance and extramarital affairs on both sides. By 1992, their separation became public, and their troubled marriage became a frequent topic of headlines and speculation. In 1996, the royal couple officially divorced, bringing an end to what many had once believed was a perfect union. Yet, despite the public drama, Diana's popularity never wavered. In fact, it grew stronger. People admired her honesty, vulnerability, and the way she carried herself through such a difficult time. Following her separation from royal life, Diana began to truly shine in her own unique way. Freed from strict royal protocols, she embraced her role as a humanitarian, with fresh passion and dedication. She continued to perform duties on behalf of the Queen, representing the royal family in many countries, but her heart was increasingly drawn toward causes that were close to ordinary people, those in pain, in poverty, or without a voice. Her charity work reflected her deeply human nature.
Princess Diana worked to call attention to those in need. She often visited children who were in the hospital. During a trip to Pakistan in 1996, she famously cradled a young cancer patient.
At first, Diana focused on children, the elderly, and the sick. But she later became known for her bold involvement in two major global causes. One was her outspoken support for people living with HIV and AIDS at a time when stigma and fear were high. Diana challenged societal taboos by holding hands with AIDS patients and visiting them openly, acts that were revolutionary for a public figure at the time. The second was her advocacy for banning landmines, especially in war-torn countries. She partnered with the International Red Cross and walked through active minefields in Angola to draw the world's attention to the dangers faced by civilians. Her courage and willingness to speak out changed how the world viewed both these issues. She also worked to raise awareness about cancer, homelessness, and mental health long before these were widely discussed in public. Sadly, Diana's life was cut short in a tragic car crash in Paris in August 1997 while being chased by paparazzi. The shock of her death triggered a wave of mourning around the world. Crowds lined the streets, flowers piled up outside royal residences, and millions tuned in to her funeral, grieving as though they had lost a loved one. A police investigation, Operation Paget, later concluded that her death was a result of unlawful killing due to reckless driving and intense media pursuit. Diana's legacy continues to shape the British royal family and society at large. She opened the doors of the monarchy to emotional expression and humanitarian service. Her sons, especially William and Harry, have carried on her charitable work, keeping her memory alive. More than a princess, Diana was, and still is, the people's princess, remembered not just for her crown, but for her heart. Diana's legacy is one that touched lives globally. Unfortunately, she died at 36, leaving her sons, William and Harry. Let's dig into the details of the events surrounding her death on that tragic night. A night that shook the world. In the early hours of August 31st, 1997, the world was struck by a heart-wrenching tragedy that would echo across generations. Diana, Princess of Wales, beloved by millions for her compassion, grace, and humanity, lost her life in a devastating car crash inside the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, France. At just 36 years old, Diana's vibrant life was cut short, leaving the world in collective shock and mourning. That night, Diana was not alone. She was accompanied by Dodi Fayed, her romantic partner and the son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. They were passengers in a luxurious Mercedes-Benz W140, driven by Henri Paul, the deputy head of security at the famous Hotel Ritz in Paris. Trevor Rees-Jones, Dodi's bodyguard, was seated in the front. As they attempted to flee a swarm of paparazzi waiting outside the hotel, the car sped away into the night, an escape that tragically became their final journey. Moments later, inside the tunnel, the vehicle lost control and slammed into a concrete pillar at high speed. The impact was catastrophic. Dodi Fayed and Henri Paul died instantly. Diana was still alive when emergency services arrived, but she succumbed to her injuries a few hours later in the hospital. Only Trevor Rees-Jones survived the wreck, albeit with severe injuries that left him with no clear memory of the crash. At first, it was thought he survived because he had been wearing a seatbelt. However, further investigations confirmed that none of the 4 passengers had their seatbelts fastened that night. The world stood still. As dawn broke and the news spread, people everywhere wept. The loss of the people's princess, a woman admired for her charitable work, elegance, and deep empathy for the suffering of others, left a void in the hearts of millions. Vigils sprang up across the United Kingdom. Bouquets of flowers carpeted the gates of Kensington Palace. Her funeral, held days later, was watched by an estimated 2.5 billion people globally. A solemn moment of shared sorrow and remembrance. In the aftermath of the crash, questions and suspicions swirled. In 1999, French authorities concluded that the crash was caused by Henri Paul's reckless driving. According to their findings, Paul was under the influence of a large amount of alcohol and had prescription drugs in his system, medications that likely heightened his state of impairment. Surveillance footage also showed him taunting paparazzi before the group left the Ritz Hotel. He had taken antidepressants, and there were traces of antipsychotic drugs in his blood. These factors painted a tragic picture of a man unfit to drive, let alone navigate the streets of Paris at high speeds with 3 lives in his care. Nearly a decade later, in 2008, a British inquest known as Operation Paget delivered its own verdict. The jury ruled that Diana and Dodi had been unlawfully killed due to grossly negligent driving by Henri Paul.
British police say they're looking at new information about the deaths of Princess Diana and Dodi Al Fayed, who were killed in a road crash in Paris,
and the dangerous pursuit by several paparazzi on motorcycles. These photographers, in their relentless attempt to capture exclusive images of Diana and Dodi, were found to have played a role in the tragedy. It wasn't just a fatal accident. It was a collision fueled by celebrity obsession and media recklessness. Even years later, the pain of that night still lingers. Conspiracy theories, debates, and alternative explanations continue to circle the event. But the core tragedy remains unchanged. A mother of 2, a humanitarian, a beacon of kindness, lost her life while simply trying to live it. Her sons, Princes William and Harry, were just 15 and 12 at the time. Their grief was shared by the world. Princess Diana's death was more than just the loss of royalty. It was the loss of a global symbol of empathy and strength. Her legacy lives on in countless ways. Through the charities she championed, the causes she brought to the world's attention, and the many lives she touched with her sincerity. The night of August 31, 1997, was a dark chapter in modern history, but it also marked the beginning of Diana's eternal legacy, one of love, hope, and an enduring reminder that kindness can change the world. Sometimes in early 2024, Diana's estate was flooded, having the outlook of a water park. Let's delve into the details of the flooding that happened at Althorp. Flooding at Althorp House. It's not every day you see a grand historic estate looking like a water park, but that's exactly what happened at Althorp House. The family home of Charles Spencer, the 9th Earl Spencer and younger brother of the late Princess Diana. On a recent Wednesday, Charles took to social media to share something quite unexpected and rather dramatic. The elegant lawns of his sprawling Northamptonshire estate had been overtaken by floodwater. Charles Spencer, a respected author and historian, grew up on the estate alongside his beloved sister, Princess Diana. Althorp House has been in the Spencer family for centuries, standing not only as a beautiful home, but also as a symbol of British heritage and aristocracy. When Charles's father, John Spencer, passed away in 1992, Charles inherited the title of Earl, and with it, the responsibility of caring for the estate. Since then, he's been the custodian of this magnificent property. But even for someone so deeply connected to the estate, the sight he witnessed was unlike anything he had seen before. In one striking photo shared to his Instagram stories, the front lawn of Althorp had turned into what looked more like a shallow lake than a perfectly manicured garden. The once green, elegant expanse of grass, usually a proud feature of the estate, was now completely submerged under inches of water. You could almost imagine ducks swimming across it. With his usual dry wit and down-to-earth style, Charles captioned the image, "The front lawn at Althorp, looking a little soggy." It was a humorous understatement for something that looked quite dramatic. Yet it also showed his ability to take such surprises in stride, even when nature seemed to be playing a very wet trick on his ancestral home. The rain, clearly relentless, didn't just dampen the grass, it soaked the soul of the estate, temporarily altering its peaceful, stately character. But Charles wasn't the only one documenting the unusual weather. On X, formerly Twitter, he also shared photos taken by the estate's conservation manager the day before. In this post, he wrote, "As wet as I've ever seen it, at Althorp House today." That simple sentence made it clear. This was no ordinary rainy day in the English countryside. For those who follow Charles online, It's not unusual to see him post about life at Althorp, whether it's peaceful countryside scenes, snippets from the estate's history, or glimpses of ongoing restoration work. But this time, the images felt different. The flooded lawns served as a powerful reminder of just how unpredictable nature can be, even in a place as rooted in tradition and history as Althorp. Althorp itself is no small place. With over 13,000 acres of land, it includes not only the Grand Mansion, but also gardens, lakes, woodlands, and farmland. The house, with its stunning Georgian architecture, holds hundreds of years of stories. From royal visits to family celebrations and, of course, the deep legacy left behind by Princess Diana. It is also the site of her final resting place, located on a small island in the round oval lake within the grounds. This sudden flooding likely stirred not just concern, but reflection. Water rising so dramatically on such sacred, historic land brings to mind how fragile even the most timeless places can be. It also sheds light on a growing concern across the UK, the increasing frequency of unusual and severe weather events. While the Spencer estate may be able to weather the storm, not all places are so lucky. And yet, in the face of it all, Charles Spencer's reaction was calm, witty, and grounded. By sharing the images with a touch of humor and humility, he reminded us that even the custodians of grand estates face nature's unpredictable moods. There's something quite human, and even comforting, in seeing someone of noble lineage take a soggy front lawn with a chuckle. Fans of the Earl quickly responded to the posts with sympathy and curiosity, many expressing surprise at the extent of the flooding. Some commented on the beauty of the reflections in the water, while others expressed concern for the well-being of the estate's grounds and wildlife. But all were united in their fascination at this rare glimpse of Althorp underwater. It remains to be seen how long it will take for the lawns to dry out and return to their usual emerald green state. But if history has shown anything, it's that Althorp and the Spencers are resilient. After all, when you've stood for over 500 years, a little water is just another story to tell. What do you think about Princess Diana's death and her grave at Althorp? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.